Alright, finishing out the review assignment for tutorial 2, the last thing that we really need to do is create a relationship between the two tables. A relationship is nothing more than connecting the two tables using a common field. So one field in one table connects to a like-named field in another table. And so in this example, if we look at our supplier database or our supplier table, this is nothing more than a master list of all the suppliers that we have in our company. And then the product table is nothing more than a master list of all the products that we have. Well, there's a pretty obvious connection here. For every product that we have, somebody supplies it, and that somebody is identified by the supplier ID. So if I look at a supplier ID, for example, I can see GRE364 as a supplier. Well, that by itself doesn't mean anything to me unless I go back to the supplier table and I look up GRE364. Then I can see, oh, that's Greineke Labs, and they're in Tiverton, Rhode Island, and so on. Okay, so this kind of connection where I have a master table and a subservient table, or what we call a parent and a child, that kind of relationship occurs because I take the primary key from this table and I use it as basically like a lookup to say, all right, for every product, who is the supplier? And it's always going to be the value of this column here is always going to be drawn from the possible values here. And so in order for the relationship to work properly, I have to actually connect the two in the relationships window of Access. Now, to do that, you go to Database Tools and then Relationships. Now, you have to have the tables closed before you create the relationships. I'm going to do it here and you'll see how it doesn't work because I have one of the tables open. So I go to Database Tools, Relationships. The Show Tables dialog box comes up. Just add both tables into the grid. And then the two fields that I want to connect are supplier ID to supplier ID. So I want to look for like-named fields. And then all I'm going to do is click, drag, and drop. And I should see supplier ID in the two tables that they're coming from there. Enforce referential integrity, we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but you do want to do that. And then when I click create, I get this error message. The database engine could not lock because it's in use by another person. What that means is that, hey, the supplier table is open, please go close it. So you have to cancel out of that, go to your supplier table and close it. Now try to recreate the relationship. Now when you do that, you get a line that connects the two tables, and you get a 1 and an infinity symbol indicating that this is a one-to-many relationship, meaning that for every one supplier, that one supplier could provide multiple products. Okay? Now, I'm going to delete that relationship by right-clicking on it, press delete. This time if I create the relationship and I don't check referential integrity, you'll notice that a line connects the two fields, but there is the 1 and the infinity are no longer there. That means referential integrity is not enforced. Well, what's referential integrity? Delete this. Referential integrity is this idea that we talked about that says for every product there is a supplier. That supplier is going to be drawn from this supplier list. Now, if I don't enforce referential integrity, I can type whatever supplier ID I want here in the product table. So for example, if I go into the products table here and I change this supplier ID from CIN 3794 to CIN 377, let's say, like that, that supplier does not exist. That's not an existing supplier here. Now, if I go here and try to create my relationship, and I enforce referential integrity, or let's do it this way, I won't enforce referential integrity. It'll create the relationship, but I have a bogus supplier ID. If I go in here and I try to enforce referential integrity, it's going to give me an error saying I can't enforce referential integrity because you have a supplier ID here that does not exist there. So what referential integrity does is it ensures that I don't make that mistake that I just made by typing in a bogus ID.